the Oscars are over, so now I get to talk about all the films that I did get to see and now I've gone to see because of it. Still glad I got to review 1917 in time, though. Thank God I saw 1917 in time. The Irishman. I mean, I don't know where to start with this. I mean, I even bring up his name. There's a reason I just brought it up in the intro. I mean, if you're into film at all or have any understanding of the entertainment business, the words Martin Scorsese is nothing of foreign to you at all. If anything, it's one of the few common words. He's just as common as Steven Spielberg or George Lucas or Ford Coppola or Ridley Scott or James Cameron. He is up there. I feel like he's even beating some of the other names that I even brought up there. That's how just common and iconic his name is. He's helped make some of the most iconic works of all time. And what's really exciting about it is that obviously his work, fun fact, is not very PG-13 for that taste. The only film that I've ever known that has been more for family viewing has been the first film I actually discovered him by that I have fond memories of, Hugo, that I watched back actually when I was in Peru in 2011. I'm really glad I still have a copy of this incredible masterwork of film. I just absolutely love it. But he's mainly known for a lot of his rated R work. He is heavily known for his rated R work. He was kind of like the 70s Tarantino, but very, 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 very more adult and violent in some ways, especially for the era. I got to watch for the very first time in my life Taxi Driver during the beginning of this year after watching a little film called Joker and hearing how the director Todd Phillips mentioned his influence over the film, aside from another De Niro, excuse me, another incredible actor, another of Scorsese's works. And then another film that I never actually got to finish, Wolf of Wall Street, where I get to realize I would fall in love with one of the hottest women in all of Hollywood and all of human history ever, Miss Margaret Robbie. So more than grateful you did that, Scorsese. But aside from that, another one of his famous works that I've been able to check out this year that I haven't actually fully seen, but seen practically most of it, that I know everything by heart, Goodfellas. I don't think I have to explain any of these works. I feel like, if anything, like I always say, this should just be an encouragement for you guys to go watch these films if you haven't. If you're just as slow as I am, go watch these films. Because now another one of his big hits has just dropped. One that's being considered one of his actually least good quality works, which is surprising because for this to be one of his worst works, it's goddamn impressive. And that's The Irishman. Now, I'm kind of glad I brought up Goodfellas for the end because it perfectly fits in with what I'm about to talk about. If you've seen any of Scorsese's work or anything related to it, it's almost kind of like the Scorsese formula film at this point, which I notice a lot. Because like I said, despite not seeing all of his work, and there's a lot that I still have to discover, I've seen the big ones and have a really good understanding of what his work is about. And watching The Irishman, I mean, it literally has, I think, half or I think all the cast of what's in the Goodfellas already, plus more of other people he's worked with Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, all back in the game, the whole gang back together to make one other big film about a big, small-town guy that soon rises up to power in the big mafia, involved usually in the old nostalgic 1950s or 60s, the good old era of rock and roll, peace and love, big political movements, the Cuban Missile Crisis is brought up. It's stuff that, surprisingly and strangely, as how specific as I may sound as I brought up, is not something necessarily new. Like, I think even the backgrounds of these characters is something we've seen before in a lot of his work. And that I can see why it can be a big turnoff for people. Though it wasn't really the big thing that people complain about that I'm also on the train on. It is without a denial that formulas are really big nowadays. A lot of companies are, despite still a lot of risk taking, especially nowadays happening more and more as directors are getting comfortable and safe with these directors to do big things, a lot of them start with just making safe films. There's no doubt about it. And it's kind of surprising that Scorsese was on the boat too. He's usually known as the guy, guys, 4 or 5 years ago, he was known as the guy who made The Wolf of Wall Street. 5 years ago. No, I'm sorry, 8 years ago. Holy shit, it's already been that long. 8 or 7 years ago since he made Wolf of Wall Street. I'm growing up fast. Wow, I did not realize that. And that's the point, though. That's what's so interesting about this film that Scorsese has brought to the big screen again, or small screen again, which I want to bring that up of what is, for me, the most interesting part about all this, which is kind of funny because a lot of the old-timey iconic directors of the past have really been against this, which Scorsese's now jumped in the big digital age, where this is the first film that he doesn't screen first in theaters, despite having some limited screenings around the country. It was a Netflix film. It was a Netflix-only film, and you could only watch it on Netflix. It was a place where you had to check it out on Netflix to be able to see what everyone's talking about, which is really honestly insane to think about it. The guy that's known for bringing what I consider one of the greatest eras in Hollywood history of the 1970s and the 1980s to just start working for the new era of filmmaking where we see Stranger Things and our YouTube videos on is just absolutely mind-blowing to me. Like, do people realize how insane that is? Martin Scorsese made a film for the internet. For us nerds. Like, that's kind of cool, but I like that. And it's so weird to see that now. When I first heard he was making a film, because if you haven't seen, he's kind of... If you know anything about Scorsese, I love the guy, but he's unfortunately becoming one of those cliche boomer type people. Anything new, he doesn't really have a good reason to hate. He just hates it because it's new and different to what he's used to. I mean, we all remember, if you've been paying attention at all in the movie industry, he made that infamous quote, like, what, a month ago, about how Marvel films are like theme parks? I don't know. But that's why it's so shocking to me and kind of beautiful to see that, hey, you know, no matter what Scorsese says or what Spielberg says, they're clearly starting to embrace it. Because I think at this point they're starting to realize you really have no choice but to work with it. And the magic of all of it is that now, yes, I'm going to start talking about the film, is that still you don't, I hope this shows that you don't have to sacrifice the quality of your work or really change much about your film and how you make them when you enter the new age of how films are going to be made now. If anything, watching this film is, like I said, felt quite formulaic. Is pretty much my second biggest complaint of this film. But, I mean, once again, a Scorsese formula, how boring can that be? That's why it's really hard to talk about this film a lot in detail, because obviously I don't want to spoil too much of it. But there really isn't much to spoil. If you've seen stuff like Goodfellas or Taxi Driver, or more especially Wolf of Wall Street and Goodfellas, those are the big two, you kind of know what's going to happen in this film. You know, classic Robert De Niro, once again back on the big screen, which I'm also going to talk about the next thing that was absolutely mind-blowing about this film. Started as your common city guy, specifically as a meat butcher delivery guy, delivering meat and steak specifically across the country. Soon wants to make it big and is offered the chance to make his name big in just simply delivering steak and getting his name out there after he's offered to join a gang that will help get his name and success out there as quick as he can. And then he goes from delivering steak to literally influencing the political movements of that era. I've told it, I think the story has been told time and time again, but honestly, I cannot deny that it does really work. There's a reason, like I said, that Scorsese formula is something people love to talk about and clearly love to watch. I don't know where I heard this exactly, but I'm pretty sure I heard that the first week that this film came out, it had 40 million people watching. The first week. I actually might be wrong about that. I actually might be even the first night that I heard in some places, which is absolutely mind-blowing. And that's why I feel like, I gotta feel like that's why Scorsese's been so big about it, especially since you cannot deny to see the magic and beauty of what Netflix brings a lot, that it brings a lot of opportunities for people that have never seen your work, that doesn't want to pay, you know, the 10 to even now $15 to $20 nowadays. Some theaters have the nerve to charge to go see other artists' different work and give them a chance. Netflix now is like the easiest almost a time consumer. The easiest buyer of time. You can just go home after a long day at work, sit your ass down on your couch, watch it on TV. And another thing that I gotta start talking about, which is so magical about this film, aside from the internet aspect of it and classic Scorsese formula, because it's unfair to just say the whole thing was formulaic. There was some genuine things that Scorsese was really experimenting with in this film that a lot of people probably didn't even notice until you looked it up, including me, and specifically my father, the real Scorsese nerd out of everyone you know, because my father grew up watching him. Specifically, him and De Niro. He fucking loves Taxi Driver more than anyone. Well, I'm so excited that I was watching it, we started finding out about the big thing that ILM and Scorsese were able to pull off in this film. The most mind-blowing part, I think, without a doubt, of all this film that everyone's talked about, even people that did not like it at all for some reason, like some of my teachers that I know, cannot deny the special effects. I never thought I'd talk about that in a gangster film. The special effects pulled off in this film, specifically for Robert De Niro's character, is literally one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in my life. Seeing the magic of them pulling that off, reminding me instantly in a sec the magic of filmmaking. It is so mind-blowing to me that something so simple as a character or an actor portraying his younger form of himself from just like, not, because it's not even like the young skinny De Niro from Taxi Driver they're trying to pull off. They're just pulling off, I think, a 30-year-old younger De Niro, which is not even that young of De Niro in the first place, and still make it look real. I predicted this years ago and knew this was going to be a big thing, so I want to talk about it right now. You guys remember this film, Rogue One? Remember when people used to make fun of that special effect with Princess Leia before great Carrie Fisher died, unfortunately, and they played young Leia and young Tarkin in this film? A lot of people, for some reason, mocked it. I personally thought instantly when I first saw that, I don't think I ever even reviewed the film, but the first thing I instantly thought about was how genius that really is. The fact that they managed to bring people that are now both, unfortunately, are literally dead, and still make them feel like they're there again, alive and going. It's even helped bring up a lot of controversy now of reviving dead actors. But what's insane is that how they can make them look so real, so young, so alive again. So I knew, out of everyone, we were all laughing at it, I knew that had potential. And I was not surprised when I heard the people at ILM specifically helped make the special effect. It was so good that I actually went on a tour for Warner Brothers Studios this last week. Literally everyone in that theater or in that studio was asking questions to the special effects team. How do you pull off something like Robert De Niro's face in The Irishman? How is that possible? That's how mind-blowing it was. And it, without a doubt, is really the best part of this film. Now we go into the unfortunate things of why a lot of people haven't been really the biggest fan of it, and without a doubt have been calling it his most disappointing work. And I say that in quotation marks because it's not really necessarily, they're not saying it's a bad film. That's what, if you realize and pay attention to what most reviews are saying in detail, they're not saying it's bad at all. It's just, yes, compared to something like Goodfellas, or compared to something like Taxi Driver, compared to something like Wolf of Wall Street, it's not his best work. It's stuff we've seen before. And specifically a big thing that really weirded me out for the first time, that this truly is the first time that I feel that definitely without a doubt, a good 30 or 40, even 40 minutes, or 45 I dare even say, of this film could have easily been cut. Just a lot of moments of the film where they're just awkwardly staring, or nothing's happening at all, or really unnecessary long pan shots are going by, which, yes, obviously style always helps tell a good, interesting story, but this is the first time that I feel like Scorsese style really becomes more of a style over substance thing, where things are just happening to happen. There's not really a purpose to them, or it's not really helping add to anything. It's just there, and it's very noticeable. That's really all there really is to say about it. I can go more and on and on and on about it, but there honestly is a reason that I gotta respect why it didn't really sweep up the Academy, as a lot of people were predicting and expecting this year, which I'm kind of really happy it did, because I'm generally really surprised and really satisfied with the big wins that happened tonight, especially with Best Picture. Congrats, South Korea. Really happy. I can't wait to see the big stuff you guys make. I wish it was Latinos first, but hey. In conclusion, The Irishman is another classic Scorsese film, back at it again. The classic Scorsese style, the classic Scorsese formula, which a lot of people could be an instant turnoff for when you want something new and fresh from him, but he never fails to deliver, especially with that classic gangster formula that he's just so damn well with, despite a lot of the very unnecessary moments that are added in there, despite the really long runtime that could easily be trimmed off. But aside from all that, it's a great classic Scorsese film. It never gets you bored, and it really is an interesting story throughout all the way. It's De Niro. I didn't even bring up the incredible performances. Joe Pesci, come on, do I even have to bring this up? Joe Pesci, De Niro, Al Pacino. It's a classic gang. It's a classic trio. You're gonna love every single one of them in this film, and every single second. They make it funny. They make it interesting. They make you laugh. They make you invested throughout the whole thing. Them themselves just staring at a camera, even in the moments where it felt so unnecessary, was still better to watch than some random kid staring into a camera. That's the best way to say it. I'm going to give The Irishman an 8.5 out of 10. Great film despite a lot of its flaws, and not one of Scorsese's best, but even one of the weakest Scorsese films. It's still a goddamn Scorsese film. That's all I got to say for The Irishman, really. There's so much you could talk about it, but it's always best to watch it yourself. And if anything, I hope this video really encourages you to check out all of his other works. Hope you all enjoy this video. It was always so much fun to talk about movies. And I'm not done yet. Not done. Still are there plenty of films that I saw for the Oscars. There's two others specifically that are coming up that I want to talk about, and specifically a new film that will be releasing soon that has had a lot of controversy, a lot of memes specifically. So many fucking memes. That should be obvious what I'm talking about at this point, but let's just see how it goes. There's a lot of films to be talking about, always new films to talk about, especially now that we're in the new decade. That's what I love doing. Thank you all for watching again. New videos clearly coming soon, and I hope you all have a lovely day. See you guys. Go watch Taxi Driver.